Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Welcome to today's episode.
we're very happy to have you here. Thank you for watching us.
Yes, today is episode 3 of our series, Guanacaste in the Middle.
Yeah, we're very happy because Guanacaste is growing more and more attention. And Vero was telling me about this article from Forbes. You want to talk more about this? What the article was about?
Yeah, we're actually super excited as just recently Forbes nominated Guanacaste as the top 5 destinations to travel in 2026. And we feel that that is such a huge nomination, especially since we just started our series highlighting this area, and for the entire area to get such a big nomination from a
Yes,
well-known
magazine and
magazine,
platform.
yeah, platform, that's so huge.
Yes, and that keeps us giving us more of ideas into. We started this project a couple of months ago, trying to feature and give more voice to the implications of either opening a company or relocating to Guanacaste, or understanding, because we at this time are focusing maybe to non-native speakers or non-Spanish native speakers. But at the time, we think that this is creating more awareness of Guanacaste. So we would like to give more of our insights into this article and maybe go a bit more further into different aspects that we want to talk more. So, Vero?
All right, so I'll get started with mentioning more what the article spoke about. It's basically said why visit. Guanacaste embodies Costa Rica's Pura Vida philosophy, where adventure and relaxation coexist effortlessly. This region pairs surf towns and yoga with luxury resorts and volcanic landscapes. I hope that the waves in the background are not too loud. I'm sorry
Or
for that.
yes.
Yeah,
So you
all
can,
relaxing.
yeah.
Whether ziplining through tropical canopies, chasing waterfalls, or spotting howler monkeys at sunsets, it's an adventure drenched in sunshine and natural wonder. New sustainable luxury retreats are redefining barefoot luxury in harmony with the environment. Costa Rica is a destination that feels both adventurous and soulful. So this was a huge, well, quite a short introduction, but I feel like it's so important to the growth of our region. So we wanted to talk about how the implications of the growth of Guanacaste, and specifically being featured on this large platform and bringing even more attention, because it was only one of 5 places that was highlighted in this specific article, which will draw a lot of eyes and a lot more, most likely more visitors, and specifically not just to Costa Rica, as I mentioned, but to our area of
Yes.
Guanacaste.
So, well, maybe both of us, as we've discussed in previous episodes, are new to Guanacaste around the same time, 4 years, more or less. But do you think these criteria of sustainability, tourism, and infrastructure holds true for this Guanacaste's article from Fort? Like, what do you think are the aspects that you feel are highly true, or what others could be maybe keep working towards redefining the beauty of the place? Because the segment, this Forbes article talks about, like all these features of Guanacaste, but now that you live here and I live here, we know that there's a lot of things that we have to keep up working with. So what are the good things about Guanacaste that you think that are well encapsulated in this article?
I definitely think that a lot of this is very true. I think a lot of the activities are within a short distance, and they are relatively accessible, especially since most people who travel to the region, regardless of their budget, have are able to participate in some sort of a part, at least, of whatever is mentioned here. Maybe go on some tours, or even just take strolls on the beach. What I feel like doesn't exactly coincide with everyone's experience is that there is a lot of mention of eco luxury, you know, retreats and hotels, which not everyone will necessarily have the financial means to visit.
Yeah.
But also, it does make sense since Forbes is a platform that does highlight
Yes.
a little higher end experiences or destinations, unique, as I said, like unique experiences for people with probably higher
Budget.
budgets.
Yes.
So I feel like that is also something that is on the rise in Guanacaste. So it does make a lot of sense that Forbes is highlighting this.
Yes.
Uh, Speaking of, we're on the beach right here, and it's we mentioned this in probably our first episode. But right over there,
Yes.
they are building the Waldorf
The
Astoria,
Waldorf.
so that is already a high end luxury resort, and we are within maybe an hour's drive from the Four Seasons. So we are there is a lot of activity in the area. There's a lot of we do have the Rio just over in one of the next door beaches in Matapalo. There is a lot of luxury
Yes.
resorts that are that growing and expanding in the area. So I feel that definitely this is bringing a little bit more attention to the higher end
Yes.
experiences, which is not something that of course it brings economic prosperity to the region. Having people with deeper pockets is always something good because they're bringing foreign
Yes.
funds, but at the same time it's not something that any type of tourist can access even from abroad, into not something that the majority of Costa Ricans can access either or
Yes,
enjoy.
and I think that this poses a new perspective on what is called in economics the spillover effect, because of course this is in Forbes, which is a well-known platform magazine that highlights and features the highest and fortunes and people that are very wealthy or companies and so on. And it's creating this environment to understand like how Guanacaste could fit into that demographic, but at the same time, the this spillover creates a different scale of other services and products that are appealing to other socioeconomical brackets. So I think
Mm-hmm,
that, for
mm-hmm,
example, I have witnessed how many small and medium enterprises have been creating more services and products to service other type of clients that could be even in part of the production chain to get to the point of the maybe pyramid in terms of the high level or high end hotels. But these, I think that this position in the map could enable more and more sustainability to create more economic growth throughout all different scales of companies, from the very small entrepreneurship to a very high end corporation. So it's great that
mm-hmm,
you're
mm-hmm.
taking all these parts, because it gives us an idea that the possibilities to keep growing, right? And if we create
Exactly.
this connection of amongst all the different parts of the chain, how we could be perceived maybe in future. Like we're gonna talk more about this, but
Yeah, definitely. We'll mention that in the a little bit later in the segments. Maybe we can go back to just explaining a little bit more to our audience that probably knows nothing about Guanacaste, or
yeah.
maybe they've traveled here, but there's many different parts of Guanacaste. Uh, there are there's a few well-known beaches, and when we speak of Guanacaste, we do need to again maybe clarify that the region is quite wide, but there isn't, besides the one a few smaller and cities where there's a lot of local population that are more inland. Um, the majority of what people actually are in the international crowd wants to visit is all the beach towns that are basically like drawing all the attention. This is where the majority of the guests stay, or some of them also make stops at some of the other natural sites. But just going back to all the beach towns, maybe we can start there, and
Yes.
you can go through the list and quickly give our audience an explanation of the different places that are
Yeah,
drawing
so
attention.
as we've talked before, like Guanacaste has a big coastal area, so we can go from very north to the border of Nicaragua, going south. we will see different beach towns. We live in Coco, as we've discussed before, but for example, Tamarindo, which is very known internationally, it's actually one of the first beach towns that started to get more international audiences back in the 70s. You could go, and it's like one of the more
It's
popular
it's a surf
destinations.
town as
It's
well.
a surf town,
Maybe we
yes,
can also mention what each place is.
can bring, right?
Yeah, there each place is a little bit. It offers its own, I guess, vibe.
Yes,
So Coco, going just to mention Coco, where we are, we've mentioned this before maybe, but there's an older crowd. Uh, we're located in a bay, so the water is very calm, and it's not great for surfing. That's why there's older crowds here. There's families. It's
yes,
just a more relaxed vibe. There's an older population. Whereas when you go over to Tamarindo, a little bit
yes,
south, you get all the surfers, and that's generally a younger crowd, more parties.
yes.
Of course, it's a mixed.
Yeah, nightlife, dining. Coco's not known for nightlife and like
No.
party goers, but for relaxed crowds, as you're saying. And it's not so far. I mean, less than 2 hours maybe.
I
On
would say
the
1 hour away from
yeah,
here.
so it's very good. So and in between Tamarindo and Coco, we have Flamingo and Potrero. So Flamingo is where the marina was built a couple of years ago. It's creating a more vibrant and I would say like more upscale population, and developments are there very high end real estate and luxury, and it's very close to Potrero, which is a bit more down to earth and rural areas, and you could just find a lot of opportunities to engage with in Potrero, like with different beach hopping, because they're like on the way to Las Catalinas, which is another development very famous in the area. You could do a lot of beach hopping, like see the different beaches in the area, and go to the marina. It's very cool. Nosara is another big destination. It's more for me like the definition of the birth of luxury that many people from all around the world expect from Guanacaste. You could find a lot of yoga retreats, surf, wellness focused lifestyle, and it's close to a national park, so you can go and see egg hatching
You have turtle egg
and
hatching
yes,
and
and turtles.
yeah.
So it gets a good idea of these very wellness consciousness focused crowds. We have some Samara and Carrillo that I was talking about before. It's a very small town compared to the other ones. For Carrillo, Playa Carrillo is very still like rich in biodiversity. Like the scenery is great. You could just do a lot of different beach hoppings as well in this area. Um, I don't know. We could talk maybe about Ostional, which is as well very famous for, as I was saying, nesting
Yeah,
and
turtle nesting and egg hatching. Actually, that's where it's a natural reserve, right? The
yes,
beach.
as well.
So it's pretty much dedicated just for that. And a couple of times a year, they there's main events where all the turtles hatch, the eggs hatch, and then people can go and early in the morning and watch that. So
And
that's
yeah,
pretty.
and I think that we could just, I mean, talk only about beaches. It's a lot of things to a lot of options to see and to do to go. But as well, the inland is very famous for the volcanoes. So
Yes.
we have Rincon de la Vieja, Tenorio. We have hot springs. We have horse riding. We have different mountain activities that are not so far from the beach. So Guanacaste on its own, I think that the article would have more information, could have more information about how easy it is to go from the mountains to the beach, how to find differences between all these different climates and sceneries, and at the end you could explore a lot of different climates and a lot of different villages
Hmm.
within hours of
Hmm.
distances. That's great.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Guanacaste, that, as you mentioned, was not highlighted. It's just briefly mentioned, but if you stay at any one of these beach towns, you are more or less within an hour's distance from the nearest volcano, which where you can see waterfalls, you can do hiking and all the other activities, hot springs. So there's so much to do, just not simply outside of the beach town itself, which offers a lot of variety and a lot of activities. And I think one thing that is really unique, that we can also mention, is that the Pura Vida lifestyle that is
Yeah.
influenced by the Blue Zone.
Yes.
And the Blue Zone, well, we're going to have a special episode on that. We're not going to go into it into detail, but the blue, we would argue that we're also in the Blue Zone here in Coco. So we feel quite lucky
Yes.
that the majority of Guanacaste is actually part of the Blue Zone. And we definitely know why. I think that we are in Guanacaste. You can enjoy a little bit more of a laid back lifestyle,
Yes, totally.
and that definitely a lot of the visitors to this region feel that, and is the main reason why they want to return year after year.
Yes, and I think that we have to definitely talk more about what makes us different in this region by exemplifying the diet, the lifestyle, the stillness, and the calmness that is as well presented throughout different activities and ways of doing businesses, and that creates an impact to foreigners that come and are not quite accustomed to seeing this lifestyle that can get sometimes quite shocking for many of them, but at the end people want to keep having more of that, right? And
Exactly.
it's all maybe encompassed or embodied in this Pura Vida, which is like the national way of addressing everything more
Of
of
the
like
lifestyle.
yeah.
And this brings us to actually our third segment, which is the economic growth and tourism and economic growth. And we're gonna go over some statistics of how much this region has increased in over the last years.
So it's interesting. We've talked about this in past episodes about how many people come to Guanacaste just for vacations and then they end up purchasing property, opening businesses, creating economic growth. And we both are examples of this. I mean, you just didn't factor to stay in Guanacaste this long. I was here just for a couple of months, and after 4 years, we've both done many things. So I think that the fact that this article has created this widespread understanding of Guanacaste as a region would create, as we are saying, more or drive more visitors into the region. But many of these people will come, and as many others would love to stay, purchase, uh, grow a family here, and so on, right? So, why don't we talk about the economic and growth that this region is is portraying or is offering to people in the area, and that is ultimately that what we want to talk more about. So
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about the international airport, which is here in Liberia, so close from Coco and the peninsula area, that we have as well mentioned in various episodes. And Vero was talking about this, the whole peninsula of Papagayo, where the majority of high-end hotels are. So there has been a very significant growth in the Daniela Duver airport, international airport, and now one of every three international tourists that land in Costa Rica land throughout the international airport of Guanacaste. So we're talking about around 33, 34% of international tourism comes to Costa Rica by Guanacaste, and it creates a whole ecosystem of offerings in this area. So it's a very, very good example of this growth. And this comes with infrastructure expansion. So when you can maybe talk about the big strip of road nearby the international airport, like how there was just one hotel back in the days 4 years ago, and now there's a lot of things,
There's a
right?
lot of things. There's been a lot of investment in that area. And to give some statistics, In 2024, the airport handled 1.9 million passengers, which is 16 year over year excuse me, increase. And a lot of the, we do need to mention that most of these flights are the dominant markets are Toronto, Los Angeles, Miami, and a few other Houston, a few other airports that cities that have direct flights. Of course, we do receive guests from or passengers flying in from all areas of Canada and the States. But as you mentioned, that area has expanded significantly. There's so many stores that open up that didn't exist. I mean, even that this area is growing when you get, for example, we got a Starbucks,
Two
which is
Starbucks.
well, we got two Starbucks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
two.
one down in downtown Liberia, and they open up at the same time, and the other one is right across from the airport. Uh, Other things that I think we got a KFC. They opened up a KFC, which I think there's a few major chains in
Yes.
Liberia, but of course, with that said, Liberia is the opposite way. If you're landing in uh, the airport, and you're coming to any of the beach towns, you're actually traveling in the opposite direction in the majority of cases.
Yes.
So you're not really getting access to any of those stores, and I feel like that's exactly what the market research came up with, and when they decided to open up the new locations. We already mentioned that we have a Costco, or what we call here Price
Price
Mart, and
Mart.
that was here since we arrived 4 years ago. But something that's really interesting is that I've noticed that over the last 4 years, the offering of um, products has grown so much that the types of items that we are having are just keep continue increasing. So obviously that means that business is doing well. People have enough purchasing power because prices are a little bit higher than what you would normally find definitely in an American or Canadian Costco due to different reasons, probably import taxes, etc.
Yes.
But yeah, that area has experienced a lot of
Grown.
growth.
We have now more hotels. We have a lot of courier services and transportation hubs around those areas to provide more services to international tourists. You could see as well how the Liberia area it's growing as well with more dining options, more supermarkets, department stores, and different other services and products that used not to be like
Available.
back in the days. And when I say back in the days, I mean 5 years ago
Mm-hmm.
after pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So the growth has been very significant over the last 4 to 5 years after the pandemic. And we could see as well how the ecotourism has gained more attention because many people come to Guanacaste as well and they want to have a real experience. And when I mean real is be more in contact with nature, be more mindful of the sourcing of the products that are being offered, the how the compensation of the workers works. So many people are more inquisitive about like the sustainability as a whole concept. And with new generations, our age and newer generations like the Gen Z and millennials and digital nomads, they are more into understanding their choices and how this impact their decisions of purchasing, right? So we are seeing more informed tourists and we could maybe see that. I mean, I haven't personally traveled through Southeast Asia, but you see a lot of information about, for example, how people go to Southeast Asia sometimes because everything is so cheap and everything is like so accessible. Here is not the same. I mean, as Vero is saying, and we all know that Guanacaste is quite more in the upscale or services that are a bit more priced than other regions, international regions. But it comes with a price of conservation, nature,
Higher
like
standard of
high
living
standards of living,
of the
and
locals.
yes, and that has to be put in the change of value of things, right? So I think that it's good to keep having these standards because we don't want to become a massified area where we sacrifice nature and sacrifice wellness just for at expense of gaining more sustainable, more tourism, right?
Yes, and wealth creation. It's a great point that you mentioned the change in what people are looking for. I think
Yes.
the reason why Costa Rica is becoming so big, I remember when I was growing up in Canada years ago, maybe 20 years ago, the trend was that you go to an all inclusive in Cuba or maybe Dominican Republic and you stay at the resort because it was not safe to leave the resort, or you are faced with extreme poverty, which most people that are going on vacation don't really want to
Yes.
face. And you lack the experience of actually getting to know the locals, um, seeing nature, getting other types of unique experiences, and really relearning about the local culture. So that has changed a lot, and I think that's one of the main reasons why Costa Rica is outperforming all any of these uh,
Other
other
destinations.
destinations
Yes.
right now. And I think another main factor is that once again, because of mostly probably reasons like safety, um, or economic, um, or maybe poverty, as I mentioned. But what a lot of resorts are doing, and this is permitted in a lot of these countries, is that the beaches are privatized completely. So you can't. There are many beaches that are not, or they're portioned off, and they're not allowed. The locals aren't allowed access. So this again, what brings a huge divide with the reality of being a tourism and the locals. It's creating a lot of gentrification, and it's not allowing and permitting the locals who have lived in this area their whole lives to actually enjoy the same amenities. And I think that's something so beautiful that here in Costa Rica, that is not permitted. And all of the beaches that are maybe portioned off still need to, because there's a resort or some sort of enclosure that's been created for some sort of business purpose, they need to permit anyone to access the beach
Yes.
legally, and they do. I've gone to so many beaches like that, and we've always been able to enter. So I think that is a huge difference, and that's the type of change of mentality that
Yes.
people are having. And maybe that a lot of these other destinations that are doing that can consider in changing their strategy, because it's definitely working for Costa Rica.
Yes, and I feel that this awareness comes with these generations, people that want to experience something different, and they are more purposeful. And for example, for digital nomads and people that want to come to the area, you can start seeing. I mean, Coco and Tamarindo, for example, they are the closest, and Flamingo, Potrero, and all these beach towns, you could find all the time the cafes with good internet. Even in Coco and in Tamarindo, you could find designated co-working spaces where you could pay
Yes.
for hours, midday or an entire day, just to have like meeting rooms and so on. And it gets a lot of accommodation. I think that we still have a big gap, and maybe we won't be as though a typical U.S. neighborhood or U.S. town or Canadian North American area, but with the Costa Rican touch, we could offer a lot of opportunities for the international tourists that want to stay for a while here, from the lodging, from the services, from the supermarkets, from the facilities, to have a good experience. And that's maybe something that people have started to associate with the area, and then they start growing their own businesses. So you could see a lot of restaurants that have been um, open over the last years, operate tourism operators, and they I would argue as a Costa Rican that we love, or we enrich ourselves by having international tourists or international newcomers in the area, because they bring ideas, they bring international investment, they bring opportunities to mix up with the locals. And of course, a lot of the hiring has to be Costa Ricans, and that gives more employment, more opportunities for growth. And I think it's a good mixture of people from international backgrounds to come into Guanacaste because of nature, the facilities are opportunities that are in the area, and they have to hire locally, contribute with taxes and with more development in the area, and that creates these opportunities of investments in real estate that we've talked, infrastructure, commercial development, and of course public-private partnerships, which are another key factor of how the private sector could contribute with the municipalities and the national government that we talked about this a little bit. So this all creates a mixture of ideas and opportunities that of course are beneficial for the Guanacaste area.
Oh yes, I think these are all great points, and it ties in really well to our fourth segment, which is
Yes.
the sustainability and challenges. And as a person who did study sustainable development, and I did focus in my master's degree, I focused on international sustainable development.
Yes.
This is something that is a hot topic, definitely right now, because the tourism industry and foreign investment brings in a lot of economic prosperity to the, especially to our region. But of course, it is bringing other. It is also affecting the area and the locals negatively, because of
Yes.
course there's always some sort of feedback loop whenever any kind of activity, economic activity, is present. So I think it will be really interesting to discuss
Yes. This
the
the challenges.
challenges that
Yes.
we are seeing, and with Forbes nominating this region and perhaps bringing even more attention and more tourism and visitors who are probably maybe going to decide to invest, stay,
Yes.
work, retire, or just purchase a property,
Yes.
and come back, or just visit once, um, at least, right? Out of all the places in the world that they can choose to visit, I mean, right now, I think it is worth mentioning as well that I think we forget when we talk about tourism in general, especially living in a tourist town, we need to always keep mindful as well that it's a choice to come here. People who have the funds, they could perhaps, as you mentioned, go somewhere cheaper. Maybe they can go to Asia, where their money can go a lot longer, and they can have more purchasing power, have access to more services. But people are choosing to come here for a reason, and I think there are so many places to choose from. So it is important to as well be grateful and try to continue the growth of the tourism sector, but of course, keeping in mind what is the best way to approach it from a sustainability perspective.
Yes. Totally. I feel that Guanacaste presents a lot of opportunities to get a higher concentration of people from different backgrounds. For example, Vero is saying she did masters in
Sustainable
sustainable
development.
development. I feel that it's great to have a person that knows about sustainable development from an academic perspective, because it gives us more ideas on how to address all these challenges. And I feel that, for example, we've discussed with my experience working with the local government that we briefly mentioned in past episodes. There are a lot of opportunities that we need to keep an eye on. For example, there has been undoubtedly a growth in construction and in real estate. So that comes with a price on water management, on hiring locals for the construction section of it. So this could create a growth on. This has created a growth in our square meters of construction, but with this comes the balancing of how to bring more community into these developments, not only in the sense of the just word community on its own, but how, for example, we could balance this growth of tourism with more purposeful activities for everybody, right? So how the community could be involved. For example, you could see now more activities where people want to go to really have a experience with locals, and that is creating the tourist the tourism involving with the community, how people are more now aware of not just living, the water open all the time, but to be more conscious, and how the water aspect is very important, because we could have all those developments, but if we don't have water supply, of course, is not going to be as efficient, right? Um, Another thing that the government, local governments have to bear in mind is the um, execution of taxes, because we are we could, I mean, I don't want to go into details on this, because there are many, as in every country, some of the taxes are going into national budgets, and other are going into local government's budgets, or in this case of Costa Rica, we're calling cantons, which is kind of similar to a county in the states, or a district, a specific district. So all of these cantons have specific budgets. So you could see how well or bad is performing a local administration by seeing for example, the local road system, the local uh, garbage management systems, the local parks and recreations area, how well are they, um, you know,
Managed.
managed,
Hmm.
etc. So many people that come into Costa Rica, maybe you could give us your perspective as a non-Costa Rican born person, and you've been dealing with a lot of investors, and they are like, I am paying taxes, but I don't see that reflected in the road system, or in the parks, or in the public services. So many people want to see that in more invested, but they have no clue on how well developed or not developed is the staff at the local governments, or how they have been uh, educated on addressing this. Because my perspective, my experience working at a municipality is that we do have a lot of taxes, collected money, but there are there are few people that actually know how to execute, and we are lacking on this, on the infrastructure side. What are your takes on this? For example, on the execution of tax and money that are being collected by the municipalities.
I can't speak in great detail because
Yeah.
I only see what is visible in terms of organization in town, or this organization, and
Yes.
not just in our town, but maybe in our region, as you mentioned, because we have the same municipality that executes orders, and there's a lot lacking. There's definitely things people in our city in particular are quite frustrated about is uh, garbage management
Yes.
and collection, and lots of potholes that reoccur every year at the end of the rainy season. There's just new ones that reappear. Another thing that has been really bothering me as well, and I see it year after year, is that we have all the wires are external, so they're running alongside the roads, and there's just fallen wires all the time, and it takes a while, if at all someone comes and does anything. They get caught on people's cars. It's very dangerous. Animals get hurt. There's reports of monkeys all the time, or squirrels or other animals that get electrocuted. So that is, and reports as well that they've been trying to contact the government about particular area where this happens a lot, and there's been a lot of casualties, animal casualties, and they just don't seem to really want to do anything about it. So they could be different. Maybe it's different bodies, governing bodies that are responsible. But overall, I think that there is a lack of organization and
Yes.
execution. There could be a much better plan in place, but from what you've told me, and in general, what seems to be the trend is that uh, oftentimes the people in the municipal offices lack education first and foremost, maybe lack experience, even local experience or let alone international experience. Perhaps they lack as well the ability to speak English. I'm not saying that that's 100% necessary. Of course, they're here to cater to the locals, but because they're so in, especially in our areas, there's a lot of foreigners and a lot of foreigners who bring in a lot of investment. So they are
Exactly.
important stakeholders that need to be considered. Yet the communication gets severed because they are not able to, they don't have many representatives who can actually openly talk and listen to the stakeholders. I don't think, if, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any kinds of even open conversations, any kind of platform where people could even voice their concerns.
Yes,
A lot of things get shut down. There's emails sent or conversations, but nothing actually really gets done. So I think that's something that would be an area of improvement in terms of the local government.
and it gets reflected throughout infrastructure 100% because you could and yes, that is a problem or an issue that is very recurrent. And I think that part of the all these conversations we have to be very open and transparent. So for example, if Forbes gives this recognition and drives attention and people come and they don't want to get involved in the development of the area, that could be, it could come with an implication of not being growing altogether. I think that all the investors and people that want to do businesses or want to relocate or want to buy property or want to visit, if it's just for the mere visit of coming for a week to Guanacaste, people are getting more conscious of the sourcing, the procurement of the products, like the staffing, the education, the nature, the conservation. But if it's a long term decision of maybe relocating to Guanacaste or opening a company in Guanacaste or so on, I think that there's a lot of opportunities to be more aware of how businesses are as well connectors to the development of the communities by hiring people, by paying taxes, by creating this development altogether. And the function of the local governments, the municipalities, is essential to a well-being of the place you're living in. So, for investors, for people that want to relocate into Guanacaste or want to create wealth in the region, I feel that it's really important that they understand how the opportunities are there for connecting to the local governments, connecting to the people in the communities, to the development associations. It's a figure that is present in every community. So there are many things that could be perceived as challenges and opportunities that if you find this sense of how I can be involved and how I can connect with people or with opportunities. I think it's a good sign that you could be part of the solution rather than just be complaining or saying that there's not enough. And I think that, for example, we are a testament of this by creating this. We wanted to create this as a mean of connecting voices and try to give an independent positioning on how we perceive this growth. And we hope that this could create more and more engagement in the future. And we could start seeing solutions rather than innumerable problems, right?
Exactly. And I think something you didn't mention, but maybe it's worth mentioning.
Yes?
It's not, we haven't fully pursued this, but there were talks, and you did start a non for profit with the idea of eventually us completing that and adding more members to the nonprofit and connecting the nonprofit to connecting the locals' needs of all stakeholders, including local Costa Ricans and foreign investors in the area, in our at least in our community, and the local government, trying to look for funding, whether it's private or government funding, and sponsor different types of projects that will contribute to the sustainability of the area. So that is not something that we've forgotten about, and it's definitely a topic of discussion that we will have
Yeah,
in the future, and
talk more about,
something that we'll
yes.
pursue eventually.
Yes, and the point is just to, I feel that Guanacaste is so beautiful that you ultimately want to become part of the place. If you're moving here, if you want to start something here, is just be part of a solution, but rather not staying just for the day and disconnect. As Vero was saying before, like it's very normal to conceptualize a destination in the North American like mentality. It's just, oh, okay, let's go to Dominican Republic, to Cuba, to Costa Rica, to Mexico, and go spend some money and some days there, and then go back. And yeah, the people that are living there, they need to have sustainability. The places need to be sustainable. And the thing with Guanacaste is that you could see more connection with this. So yeah, we would talk more about this,
Yeah,
how you
definitely.
can get involved in the future. But the
Mm-hmm.
future comes, right? Like
Yeah.
I wanna know your, and this is our last segment of the future of Guanacaste, because we could talk a lot about how we perceive Guanacaste in the future, but with your international background, because not only you did have this master in sustainable studies, but you have traveled the world. You speak many languages. You have you could say that you're quite international person. Like you grew up, you were born in Europe. You moved to North America. You've traveled the world. Like now you're settling in Costa Rica. So based on all this experience and your academic experience and your understanding of the world and the discipline, how sustainable is this growth? I mean, how sustainable Guanacaste could be in the future, and are we putting enough attention into this in the international climate of everything that is happening in this world? What are your takes on the future of Guanacaste, Vero? I would love to know.
I have been thinking a lot about the growth of this region as I have seen it firsthand, and I do come from a sustainable development background. I've also listened to a lot of the concerns of all parties because I'm lucky to be able to speak Spanish, so I have access to a lot of the online communities, and more or less I get an idea about what each each stakeholder in the local area at least is what what challenges they're facing, how different movements are impacting them, and one thing that I keep circling around is the fact that unfortunately Costa Rica, well, fortunately and unfortunately, Costa Rica is a small nation where we cannot forget that there's only around 5 million. The
Yes,
local population is
five
about
plus
5 million. With that said, the majority of the I think more like around half or more than half live in the San Jose area,
Around the half of
right?
the population lives in what it's called the
The Central
Great
Valley,
Metropolitan Area. Greater
right?
Metropolitan Area, yes.
Which is basically the center of the country.
Yes.
We are quite far away from that area, and our towns and all of these towns in Guanacaste that we mentioned, they're very small. And this area alone, like our town used to be a fishing village not too long ago. Um, so with that said, thinking about the population size, and there isn't a lot, like if anything the population is going to keep decreasing in Costa Rica because it's already so low. um, and then the other big aspect that makes me wonder of, how what's the best way to approach the economic growth from tourism and foreign investment going forward. When I look at the statistics, the one of the four pillars of the economy of Costa Rica is tourism, and in particular nature-based tourism.
Yes.
When I see these statistics as well about tourism, I also there's it's maybe clumped together. I'm not sure, but or it could be another economic pillar on its own. But definitely in these statistics that we mentioned earlier about how many people pass through just the Liberia International Airport, we do need to think about that every single international investor is coming through, most likely coming through the airport, or technically a tourist.
Yes.
Even people who are maybe working remotely and spending some time of the year here, or even living permanently but don't have a residency status, they're also considered tourists. Everyone that comes to this area and decides to invest brings their friends, their relatives. They decide to come and visit. So there's every more reason to come and visit with every single person that comes and decides to stay for more than just one trip or return than just one trip. So when I think about the growth and expansion of this region and how we can do that sustainably without considering tourism and its effects on the local economy, it's really difficult. I think there's some stats here that I pulled that's more or less the direct contribution to the GDP from travel and tourism is about 4%, and it supports around 243,000 jobs in total. Um, so tourism does a lot more than what maybe some think. It's not just that people come here and they spend their money, which also brings. We can't forget that tourists are bringing in money earned somewhere else into the country. So that is an additional, that's one of the reasons why it's such an important pillar, because it's adding new money circulating into the economy. But um, it also brings foreign exchange, supports many small medium local businesses, right, like hotels, restaurants, creates demand for local food, crafts, and construction. And then it's especially important in rural and coastal livelihoods and regional development. So our towns and these areas are largely dependent on tourism, and I think an important conversation that we need to start having
Yes.
all together is not how we can make the tourists go away, but it's how we can bring the tourists, but then also maybe add additional services. Maybe they could be we could have conversations all together, not just between me and you, about um, training, so that people don't all, like, not everyone in the coastal communities can take advantage, and the locals living in there in the local communities, and not just end up. I do understand that there is a large trend that is very unsustainable in a way, that there is job creation, but there is also a lot of these jobs in the tourism industry are lower skilled positions, which of course don't bring in higher income to a
Yes.
lot of families. So, but that is why I mentioned a conversation around skill
So
development
skill
and
development training.
yeah, training, so that people can develop more skills, and then they
Yes.
can get better paid jobs, because
Yes.
there is a historical um, trend that people in coastal communities lack education, they lack training, and that is why the only jobs and the livelihoods that they can get is in low skilled work.
Yes. So if you, I mean, for me to understand, like, so you feel that we could, yeah, maybe, because it's, not all the time it's wise to lay all the eggs in the same basket. And Guanacaste has grown a lot in tourism, but that creates a dependent industry, and we are only focusing maybe our development of the area into one majorly specific sector, right? So by training on gaining more education and conversations about different ways of producing growth and economic development, we could maybe alleviate this heavily already packed industry, which is tourism, right? Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
yeah, exactly. I think that there's a lot of opportunities, because as mentioned, when we talk about tourism, there's a lot of different businesses and industries that are indirectly
Yes.
also are connected to the tourism sector, right? There's more consumption, there's demand for different kinds of services, like outside of what no one would typically consider. People go to the supermarket and they purchase local goods that could be maybe even made in San Jose, and but are delivered to this area. So there is a lot more than just what goes on in the beach towns, right? There's different parts, and there's people come here Also, a lot of people are coming not just for tourism, but people are coming from dental work,
Yes.
for medical services. I mean, our town has an excellent
Yes.
clinic that provides all of those. People come here for all kinds of treatments. So there's the services are growing and expanding, and also I think maybe you're a little bit more knowledgeable on the zona franca or
Yeah.
free
Free trade.
free trade zones.
Free trade zones.
And there's a lot of people that are also employed in the free trade
Yes.
zones, and a lot of these workers actually hire skilled workers, and that creates as well an opportunity for people to locals to improve
Yes,
their standard of
and
living.
there have been a lot of conversations about how to diversify industries in Guanacaste, but as you mentioned it, and this has historical backgrounds that we've talked about in the past, how these areas were less the priority of the central government for the reasons, the geographical reasons that Vero already mentioned, that the greater metropolitan area concentrates more than half of the population, and the Costa Rican geography um, created this maybe allocation of services and agenda of the government in the Central Valley, and you could see a very palpable and distinguishable, noticeable lack of services and education and development alongside the whole coastal areas of Costa Rica, not only in Guanacaste, but in the southern Pacific, on the north and southern Caribbean. You could see how the government didn't invest as much as it invested in the Central Valley. So now that Guanacaste has a lot to offer and a lot of eyes are laying expectations on Guanacaste, how could we divest from the rather only tourist driven industry to a more
Diversified.
dedicated different industries?
Mhm.
But yeah, we lack the talent, we lack the training, we lack a lot of the mental compound that we need, so people get more autonomous and independent into, oh yeah, I can do more than only work as a housekeeper, and we need both, right? And that's
Exactly.
the beauty of the social mobility that Costa Rica has been um, trying to promote throughout history by the last 100 years, or like by the time we got independent, etc. But over the from the 40s and 50s of the 20th century to now, of the last um, yeah 80, 90 years, the country's ethos has been trying to promote social mobility. So if I grew up in certain conditions, my children could grow in different conditions. And I think that this has to be the reason of being of governments in general. But you could see here how, yeah, my parents' history was totally different from mine. And I hope that my generations in the future will be even more different and more developed. So Guanacaste has to catch up faster than the rest of the country. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the issue, right? So
Mm-hmm.
by diversifying industries, I think that we could make a rapid consensus into how we could grow better. Yes.
I totally agree with you. I'm not sure if you have any more points that you wanted to
Yes.
discuss, or
I
any more ideas about how we
the
can,
future.
yes, how can we keep growing,
Yes.
and then but not necessarily fall. I think something that I was going to mention earlier, but I missed it, was also avoiding the trap of doing so much and growing so much, overbuilding to
Yes.
the point where the natural factor disappears, and that pura vida eco lifestyle
Yes.
just starts to feel like it's not real anymore, it's not
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Totally with you. I think that we need to create a mechanism to support more economic growth at the small and medium enterprises level, because we already have a lot of big companies servicing, for example, in tourism, right? So if we want to stick maybe a little bit with this industry, it's okay. But yeah, every hotel needs the procurement of the, the food, the cleaning supplies, the local transportation, and of course these are big corporations that have a very way and work very standardized way, sorry, to procure their services, to purchase, etc. But now we don't have maybe enough offerers of cleaning companies or gardening services that are already well established to support these other corporations. So the value chain sometimes get interrupted because the offerers of the services are not well skilled and are not trained into how to offer and how to sell to a big corporation. So the ecosystem of support to small and medium enterprises, I feel that should be a priority. So more companies can start developing themselves and not only servicing big corporations or bigger buyers, but as well create a chain of development of the sphere of the small and medium enterprises. I think that if we have more conversations about how to train more people, not only to get more jobs, but to develop more jobs into an ecosystem of growth. I think that that would be a great opportunity for us to start having a more developed, sustainable, developed future. And I think that with that we could do more um, services, like provide more services. So, for example, we can have now the government promotes services as a mean of export. So, for example, Costa Rica, in the local context of Central America, it's a very well advanced country. So you could see people from other Central American countries that see Costa Rica as a like idealistic, developed infrastructure world. So why don't we offer services and export services, which is something that there is, for example, in architecture and in web design, more and more companies are exporting their services throughout the region, not only Costa Rica but Central America. And so if there are many ideas of things that could be exported as a service, that could come from Guanacaste, and like we could start creating companies that provide software and services to other countries and start to export services. I think that that could be alternative tradable skills and sectors that are not depending on the development, like physical development, but rather like with the surge of software and AI, technology, and so on. We could see like we have seen like millionaires and billionaires that built their fortunes in the 20s, 2000, sorry, by the dot-com bubble, that now are here investing in real estate. But they come with different, acumen on how to do uh, online businesses. So we could start maybe creating a community of how could we not be so dependent on building brick and mortar or hotels, but rather offering services. And um, with this training that you were talking about, so for example, we haven't talked about the energy matrix that Guanacaste offers. We are one of the few areas in the world that offers so many different access to energy, from wind to geothermal to water, like water energies, to um, air. What do you call, like
Like windmills.
wind?
Yeah.
Yes, etc. And we are gonna have the only biomass plant in Guanacaste of all Central America. So now we will have a fifth element of energy production. So now, for example, and all is this renewable energy, which is one of the opportunities that brings value added to Guanacaste and Costa Rica. So I am a personal believer that, for example, with the search of development in technology, in the high demand of data centers and opportunities to, so data centers are a huge energy consumption, consumption infrastructure type of, and Guanacaste could be an hub of development of alternative to data centers that consume renewable energy, because we do have the land and we do have the energy and we do have the all the conditions to attract. So, for example, data centers that now big companies are installing data centers, but they have this caveat of how to source the energy for that. So we do have like a lot of solar and wind and hydro and geothermal and biomass production of energy that we could, for example, provide this as an alternative, for example. And there's like a lot of things that Guanacaste can be uh, developing in the future to accommodate the peculiarities of our region. So in the long term, maybe we could create more skill development, as you were saying, like how to train more people, how to divest from this only tourist-driven sector at the moment, and promote more diversification outside the Central Valley to create more awareness of this region as a huge developer, because we are, and this is like a little bit political historical, but the growth of Costa Rica on its own happened throughout the Central Valley only, and now Guanacaste and the Northern Pacific is creating a different way of seeing development. So with all these people that are in Guanacaste that came from all around the world, they came with a different idea on how to develop, how to create, and we are now seeing this as an opportunity to from which we can take more and more of these brains and ideas and create this environments in which voices can be heard and ideas can be executed. I think that Guanacaste is the perfect place, the perfect lab for doing a lot of things. And that comes with policy design. I think that this is very important. And I, I'm a firm believer of governments as a way to create these social contracts and development, but we need to have more opinions. And you said how to hear the voices of people that come and maybe come from other background where governments are more effective, but they could come here and be as listened and as seen as a local, because they ultimately are locals now here. So I think that policy design and implementation of policies at the local government, it's a great opportunity, because the configuration of the Costa Rican government allows the local governments to have a lot of independence and autonomy in the way that the decisions are made and money is executed, as we were saying. So we need to maybe, for example, have more indicators of the GDPs by sectors or by counties, as I was saying, how the execution, the design of the and the execution of the annual budgets from the local governments needs to be more measured by all the different parties that are involved in the creation of this wealth, because now we don't have this level of connection between the taxpayers and the designers of the budgets, of the annual budgets that every local government has to implement. So by coming here, I think that the role of the local governments should be more dynamic and create more connections and opportunities for taxpayers and locals to get what they want by voicing their opinions, and that is a huge opportunity as well for this region and on its own. So I maybe I could go on and on, but I think that the if we could if we keep having these conversations in the future, we definitely will see the opportunity to create more growth and more development and more prosperity, and we have all the conditions. I think it's just a matter to voice ourselves in a common grounded opinion, and definitely feel like your opinions matter and that you can voice it up and that you can find echo on this.
Yes, I agree 100%. And I think it's important for the conversation to get louder and more, and for more voices to be heard and voiced. because it takes a village. It takes a village to do anything, and I think
Yes.
if we we were to able to get together in some way,
Yes.
hopefully through the help of the local government,
Yes.
make up some plans, hear what different groups are experiencing, and what could what their ideas are of what could be changed. We could all contribute to a much more sustainable
Yes.
uh, future, because I think all of us were ultimately drawn to this area not because they want we want, like, personally myself, and I know from many foreigners that I've spoken to, it's not because they want to come here and take something. They actually want to come here and give
Thank you.
something back, because for them, just being able to come here and feel the purity of the people, the nature is something that is so precious to them, and they want to be able to give back and not lose it more than anything. Find they I think all of us, what ultimately all of us have, as foreigners, and maybe not foreigners, but um, foreigners to the area,
Yeah,
have
foreigners
found
to the
here.
area.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think what we all have found is, like, our little piece of paradise, and all we're trying to do is just keep keep it the way it is, so hopefully not experience any negative change.
This article, just to wrap up, positions Costa Rica as a destination in the world, one of the few destinations that they decided to highlight. And I think that this comes with a lot of edges, right? Not only because we are in an era of responsible tourism and responsible investment and responsible everything, and more conscious in the reasonings behind deciding to do anything. So I'm glad that we are having a lot of international attraction and more eyes on the ball, which is Guanacaste. But with this, we could unravel a lot of conversations. So we're gladfully on the right note for the future and for future episodes, and to give more of this Guanacaste in the middle of everything. So I'm glad that we had these conversations, and thank you very much for this space again, Vero, and for your insights. And I hope that you had fun as much as I did.
I did. Thank you. See you in the next one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.